Hello YouTube and welcome back. In this video we're going to be talking about a front timing cover slash oil pump. This is an American Motors Jeep one. Buick 231 also has the same design, so everything I'm doing here you can do exactly to a Buick 231. What's different about this? Most warranties when you do an engine or you buy an engine or you have it done, it's going to be you must have a new oil pump. Well, how do you get a new oil pump when it's part of the timing cover and they don't sell a new timing cover? If you have a Toyota that's front driven, they do sell a new timing cover. But this is an American Motors Jeep and they don't have a timing cover available. But what can we do? We can do a oil pump rebuild kit. It's a melling kit. I've never had a problem with the melling kits. Not only have I never had a problem with the melling kits, OEM manufacturers use melling and they have for years. So I'm going to go ahead and do a melling upgrade on it. Actually, it's not an upgrade. I'm going to do a melling service. I'm thinking of the Buick 231 that there is a high volume upgrade. Going a little sidetrack there, but let's take you to the back and I'm going to show you how I serviced this cover and did an oil pump. I don't want to say a rebuild kit because it's not a rebuild, it's more like a service, but in essence we're calling it a rebuild kit. All that being said, let's get out there and I'm going to show you how we service this timing cover and then we'll get back here and we'll talk about it. In this video we're going to be doing a oil pump rebuild kit for a front timing cover. On most engines, I say most, on most engines you just buy another oil pump. You don't take the time to rebuild it because it's more cost effective to just buy a new oil pump. If you're doing an engine that somebody else built, a shop, or you bought from a supplier, one of the main things is going to be must have a new oil pump for the warranty. But there are some engines that you cannot buy a new oil pump. All right, you probably already know that because you're watching this video. And if you have an AMC, if you have a Buick 231, Buick Grand National, there's a lot of engines that the oil pump is part of the front timing cover and you cannot buy it. This is an American Motors. You're not going to find one. So what's your options? You're going to have to go through salvage yards. You're going to have to find you a good timing cover. For the main part, a lot of times the oil pump is okay and they're corroded on the water ports. But if it's spun or rod bearing, there is a good chance that all that metal went in through your pump and you might not have a good timing cover. So the first part of this video is find a good core. So we're going to look inside. Don't be amazed, scared, or anything about the light scratches in here. You're going to take apart every single one and they're all going to have light scratches in here. There's nothing we can do about that as long as they're not galling, as long as they're not in there and they mangle the aluminum, then it's fine. All that means is some trash went through here at some point and scratched up the oil pump, the inside of it. Here's the original gears that came with it, and you can see they're scratched up as well. So we don't need to worry about the gears. The gears come new with the kit. What I do like to do is take and measure what you have compared to the new one. This one, if you measure from the center, it measures the same as my new one. And as you get going to the outside, and as you get further out because of the wear, the gears are worn a little bit. This is actually could be put back into service, but it is worn out. The beauty of what melling does is they're in the oil pump business, so what they do is they sell you all of the stuff to rebuild your pump. Just buy a melling kit, K85 if I'm correct, K85 right there if you're running an AMC. But if not, just go look them up, call Shop Mom, whatever you got to do. What are we worried about? We're worried about, we're going to do a kit on this. I've cleaned this. I've glass beat it. I suggest y'all do not glass beat it unless you're going to sit there and make sure there's no glass beads in any little hole in here. So I would rather just clean it. Clean it with solvent, clean it with diesel, however you want to clean it, brake clean. And I'd rather it go back on slightly a little bit, not pretty. We don't want any grit in there. But going over the top to glass bead, if you don't know how dangerous glass beads are, Advice, leave it alone. Don't do it. It's going to probably be, it's going to look prettier and not going to run as good. It's going to mangle up everything. So advice number one, stay away from the glass beads unless you're, I don't want to say a professional, but one glass bead, your engine is done. So I'd rather have it just clean with solvent. Enough said about that. I cleaned the parts. I've cleaned these parts. You see there how there are scratches a little bit deep in there? It's okay to take and sand this down. A piece of 400, a piece of 220 on a piece of glass, and you can go to town here. Make it as nice as you want. You're not changing any clearances on the oil pump when you machine that. Machining it all you want does not change the clearances in the gears. Machining here does change the clearance in the gears. So we don't want to do that. All I do is I have a piece of granite with some 400 and I lightly do it about 4 or 5 times across to get a nice little flat surface. I'm not taking any metal at all off of here. If you take metal off of here off, your gears will get tighter. If you want to go to the extreme and rebuild a pump and blueprint a pump, you can get all of those specs and do all that you want. What you can actually do is measure that gear there, measure the thickness of this gasket here, find out what the factory wants there, and you can get there on the Bridgeport and you can machine that bottom, or you can machine here. You're actually machining and rebuilding a pump. We're going to service a pump. It's what we're doing. So the most part, if you don't get medieval, you don't even have to measure anything. As you slide the new gear in here and even put that gasket on there and just tighten it without any grease, you can come in here and you can check your clearance up and down right here. So without any tools at all, like I said, you can drop your gears in place, you can put your gasket on, you can put this back on, and then you can check to make sure you have up and down movement right here. So as long as you got movement up and down, you don't want to be excessive, but the most part is you don't have enough movement and it tears up the bottom. For the most part, melling, I don't know about anybody else's kits, but melling stuff every single time to me has never been off at all. What's going to stop you from being successful? If it ran a bunch of metal in here and right in here it's mangled and this is loose, don't try to service a pump that can't be serviced. So we want a pump that can be serviced. Here, the old one, as you can tell, just has a little bit of play there. We could have really put this back into service, but they do make a kit, and you can see it does have some little scratches from trash that went through there. So we're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of this one. I've already measured them. They're identical. Here's the new ones. Key number one, make sure that is clean, and make sure that you're not totally worn out inside. Because if you are, then you're wasting your time, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to waste your time, my time, anybody else's time. It's your time. Have a good time. All right, so this is all good to go. I'm going to get my lube and get everything ready, and we'll start assembling it. And it's just basically we're going to just assemble it on camera. Okay, so what I've done, completely clean. I got my shaft, easy now, inside of the oil pump housing. I went in and put the gasket on up here and a couple of bolts, almost like a triangle. Don't need to put them all on, and I snug them. And what I want to do is I want to actually physically check, and you can put dial indicator here. We can do all of that. I'm doing this for the people that are home that don't have anything. That's why we're going to use a milling set. They do all the homework for you. So unless you get medieval and start changing stuff, it's going to work. But listen to what I'm listening to. Can you hear that? I'm moving it easy now, in and out, and I have play. I can spin it, and I have play up and down. That's what I'm checking for, making sure that we're not binding in there, that gear is not too tall. If you want to get in there and start blueprinting, and you want to check you want to make sure you have 5,000 clearance, 4,000, whatever it may be on the AMC. I had to do that on a Studebaker. We're not blueprinting this. This is an actual, just an overhaul. And I know all this is real good. This is real low miles, very low mile Jeep that sat parked for a long time. So I knew this stuff was all okay anyway. Look at this, there's not even any corrosion in here. is so nice. The worst thing is that somebody at some point did a fuel pump and took out the back part there, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm here, and here I am. We got clearance here. It's fine. I'm comfortable now taking this back apart and going ahead and assembling it. Another thing I want to talk about is there's two check valves in here, and they're both doing a different thing, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. One is a bypass. Go ahead and protect that. We're not going to put any sealer on that either because it's a special gasket for oil pumps, and we really don't want to change the clearance. So there's our gear. We're going to drop in our other gear. I'm going to put some lube on it as we start our assembly. But let's talk about the two check valves that I just mentioned. Here they are, and they're on this cover. And most engines are going to have this. On this particular engine, the check valve, I can actually unbolt it and take it out. So let's go ahead and stick with the AMC that we're doing now. That little tube right there that holds the filter on, it also holds this little plate. Underneath this little plate, there's a little check valve. It's a phonic little piece, and there's a spring. That goes inside of here, and what this does, if your filter gets dirty, clogged, and your engine's going to burn up because it doesn't have oil, the suction will pull that check valve here open. It'll pull this down, and it's a bypass valve, and what it'll do is it bypasses oil. So instead of burning up your engine because your filter's dirty because you haven't done maintenance, it'll open up and it'll bypass the oil filter. So let oil go unfiltered into your motor, but unfiltered oil is a little bit better than no oil. I think we can all agree with that. So that's the first type of valve. On a Chevy small block, in the rear, they're actually pressed in, and most of them, they're pressed in a little cartridge that you can buy a replacement one. I like this one because we can actually take it apart. So all this is your oil filter bypass. All that goes in there. You should open it up and clean it and not drop your spring. I got it. Saved it. Saved the day. So that's the first type. That's that one that goes right there. Also, what we have on this side is we have an oil pressure check valve. So we have a spring and a piston, and it goes in right there. I can get it right. There it is right there. And it has a little plug with the gasket. And what this does is this is your oil pressure control valve, check valve, whatever you want to call it. This is what controls your oil pressure. So it's a bypass, oil pressure bypass. So what it does, as the oil pump is building up oil pressure, once it gets to the pressure that the factory decided your motor needs to have, this opens and bypasses the rest of it back into the pump. So if you wanted to increase oil pressure, the more spring pressure will makes more oil pressure. The weaker the spring, it opens and it bypasses in here. So this controls your oil pressure. The beauty of this type of pump is from the outside of the engine, you could pull this off and change springs and control your oil pressure. You could literally get in here. An old trick was to put a washer behind there and increase the spring pressure. So putting a little washer there, in my mind, is acceptable. What is not acceptable is pulling the spring. Don't think, I know you are, that you're going to pull this spring and make more spring pressure. Don't ever manipulate the spring that way. Adding a shim, been there, done that. We'll add a little bitty washer. The little bitty washer that I'm talking about has to fit in there. So that little bitty thin washer, that little thickness is actually, okay. That better view? I don't know. All right, it's time to assemble this bad dog. I like to use, you can use Amsoil, you can use gear lube, you can use regular oil, you can use lubriplate. On the oil pumps that are front mounted, STP and lubriplate are really in your favor, better off because the oil doesn't drain out. Any of those would work. I'm going to use Amsoil because it's real sticky as well. It's a little bit more expensive, but hey, you know, quality isn't cheap, and cheap isn't quality. Is that something that we could say? Let's see if I can't do it where y'all can see what I'm doing. If you can't, tell me to move the camera to a different angle. I know you're thinking, well, how am I going to move it to a different angle if we can't see what you're doing? If I can't hear what you're saying. Oh, somebody said something. All right, look how nice and thick that is. Perfect. They ought to sell this stuff by the ounce. So expensive. Hold our gasket in place. Let's figure out where the gasket goes. Not that difficult. I like puzzles. You like puzzles? I like puzzles. There we are. The gasket's on. Once again, you can put a little bit of oil on there just to hold it in place. Only goes on one way, and the same way with this, but I got to figure it out. I do have to figure this stuff out. Look at that. Wasn't that hard to figure out? I'm looking down these holes to make sure that all of the bolt holes line straight up and there's not a gasket sticking in its place. I'm going to put a little drop of Loctite on this, but for now, I'm going to put 2 just to align everything. Look at that. Now I can move the gasket around if I need to and make sure everything's lined up really good. And it is. When you do use Loctite, don't get all crazy and put so much Loctite that your neighbors know you have Loctite on it. You know what I mean? We don't want that at all. Just a little drop. You don't want too much, because it will get in there and get in between the gasket and down in the pump and everything, and we don't want that. So you don't want so much that it just impedes everything, covers everything up, gets in between the gasket, gets in there on the gears. We don't want that. No, 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 no. Okay. We're liking it. If you want to get to the trouble of going online and figuring out what the torque is, I encourage you to do that. I'm going to just snug these bolts because I've been doing it for a long time, and maybe that's not a YouTube video because I'm not giving enough specifics. Well, I had a customer call today because he stripped out some bolts on an LS. And the problem with going online and getting all of these videos or websites that tell you what the torque is, the torque said 22 pounds. So there he goes. He busted a bolt and stripped all up because common sense is going to save you every time. I know common sense is different to different people. If you live by a railroad track, then you know to move when the floor shakes, the ground shakes. But if you've never lived by a railroad track, then that common sense ain't going to be there, is it? So I do get that. I know. My common sense is a little bit different than everybody else's common sense. I grew up in the shop, so I know that don't drink green water. It ain't Kool-Aid. It's antifreeze. My common sense is a little bit different. All right, that's it. That's it. I'm just going to snug them. You can go back later. It's external. If you see a little oil, you can come back there and snug them. The biggest problem that most people are going to have, they're going to break these and strip them. They're little bitty bolts. It's done. Trust me. I don't want to say throw that torque wrench away. Throw that torque wrench away. Look at this. Look at how nice that is. So what's left now as part of the oil pump? I'm going to put this brand new spring, check valve spring, and the check valve. Now, one of the keys that I could tell you on a check valve is, sorry for the ear noise, if the check valve doesn't just slide in all the way down and then goes like that, If it doesn't just slide out and in, it's going to affect your oil pressure. People, they'll be mangled, they'll be scratched, they'll be dirty, and this will stick. This sticking a little bit, if it sticks open, you have no oil pressure. If it sticks open, depending on where it's stuck, it's just bleeding all your oil pressure, you don't have no oil pressure. If it sticks shut, you could blow a seal because you got way too much oil pressure. So don't rely on your spring to, oh, it's okay, look at that spring. It's going to move it. It better move just effortlessly, just like that. Okay, we've tightened up all of our bolts on this top plate. What I like to do is once I get them all tight, is I like to go ahead and just tag them that they're tight. I even tag them in the same direction. So those are all tight. We know those are tight. We know they're good. Oil pump spins freely. That's basically it. But let's finish this off. We have the check valve. We talked about make sure the check valve moves freely. If it does not move freely, you're just going to have troubles, and you don't want that. I know this moves freely. This goes in and out without a problem. With a little bit of AMSOIL, it'd be even better. Look at that. Look at that. It even feels good. Then we have put you a new gasket on there. It's an aluminum gasket. If you don't have one, you can't get one. I'd rather you at least put the same one back on than no gasket. Put a little RTV around it. You'll be fine. And then we're going to go ahead and screw this in. Easier said than done. I don't know if I can, if you can see that. You can. You just got to push down as you're turning it. It'll probably been easier. We're not trying to get it to where y'all can see it, but I'm not complaining. Am I? Is that a complaint? Okay. Tight. Good. You know what I'm going to do is tag it because it's done. It's that easy. All right, what do we have here? We have our oil bypass, and it's for in case our filter gets dirty. I have a little bit of Loctite I put on just the threads a little bit. Don't need to. We're going to put in the spring goes in first, goes all the way down. This little phenolic, looks like a little star looking piece, is going to go down on top of it. This has a little recession. See that up there? And you want that to go down. You probably already know that because you had your eyes open when you took it apart. Did you not? Did you not? Am I doing this good enough where y'all can see it? There we go. I don't know how the focus is, but there we go. All the way down. And AMC was pretty cool. They made these two the same size socket. You need to know what it is. It's a 7/8. I'm going to go and tighten this one down by hand as well. And that's it. Good enough. I will also give it a light little tag that it's already tightened. When you have more than one person in the shop, don't make a mistake in putting something on. My uncles always says don't put something on unless you're willing to tighten it. You're not helping anybody just screwing it on for the heck of it because it's going through the motions. So put it on and tighten it, tag it. So I tag it. Everybody here will have a different color marker. If you have a shop of 5 people, give each guy their own marker, blue, purple, green. These Sharpies are really awesome. Just so you can see, this is what we're doing. So if you have more than one person in your shop, even 2 people, 3 people, give everybody a different color marker. Down the road, you have a problem. Is it a blue marker? Is it a green marker? We know who did it. So, all right, so I'm using the green. There it is. The oil pump's ready to go. Everything's tight. Spins beautifully. It's ready to go. It's now a service pump with a brand new melting kit. Remember, it's the K85. What do they say? Submerge the oil pump in clear oil and revolve it by hand before installing on the engine. I don't know that a lot of y'all don't have to, but yes. What I like to do is if we can get in right in here, see these two, that's your oil pressure right here. You can see the gear inside, that's where the oil pressure is going to come out. This has the suction side from the filter. So it's going to go through here, it's going to go through the block. All that being said is, remember this guy? STP, nice and thick. I'm going to pour STP in here and turn that over. You could also use Lubriplate. Some of y'all may not know what lubriplate is. You could use lubriplate. It's a little bit thicker, and what happens is when you go to put this on, you don't want all that oil just running out of here. It's going to upset you because they're going to be running here. How do you seal the timing cover with oil all in here? It's a pain in the butt. So I had to do several different ways. If I'm going to use a 30 or 40 weight oil in here, or any kind of oil, then after the oil is in there, I'll put lubriplate just that top little piece. Fill it with lubriplate so that way it's there and it can't leak while you go to put it on. Just a tip of the day. Using a thin oil in here is just going to run right out of there. So fill it with STP, really is my number one. STP, lubriplate, AMSOIL, Fram, motor oil, anything that you have is better than nothing. Also, by me putting, I use AMSOIL on the gears, so they're real sticky now, and there's got something in there, so it has some suction. I could leave that alone, because when we put this on, if we're going to put it on a run stand, if I'm going to run it, I'm going to take a drill in here with the screwdriver, right? We're going to take a drill in our tool, and we're going to spin the pump and build up oil pressure before I drop in the distributor. So think about it. As long as there's some lube in here that has suction, you fill up your oil filter when you put it on. As soon as you hit that with your priming tool, it picks up oil pressure real easy. So you don't have to really get in there and fill that up totally. Just have some in there so you have some suction. This is it. Y'all are laughing. I heard some of y'all. This is it. Let me back off. All right, we're back. Went out that way, came in this way. It was that quick. Doing the timing cover, it took me longer to clean it. Tip of the day, don't glass bead it unless you're 110% sure that you're going to get all the glass beads out of it. It's a real simple, straightforward kit. You don't even need any micrometers. The biggest tip is you can reach in here and spin it right here and move it up and down and make sure you have clearance. Another big tip that's going to stop you from doing a timing cover rebuild is if the housing is worn. If it's worn because it ran a lot of metal through it, and putting new gears in it ain't going to make a difference. It'll take care of all the nicks and scratches on the gears, but if the outside housing is too worn out, mangled, just throw it away, look for another timing cover. This one was just parked for a very long time, and there's really nothing wrong with it. It had hardly any wear, light scratches. I could have used the same gears. Went ahead and did a service kit on it. Here we are. It's that simple, it's that quick. Now you know how to do an oil pump service on your AMC Jeep front timing cover or Buick 231. All right, I hope it's been educational, entertaining, if nothing else. If it has, hit the like and subscribe. Leave me a comment. Tell your buds, tell your friends. Don't forget your chickens and your piggies. As for me, I'm going to get back out there to work because I got to get this on the engine. We'll see you on the next one.